All right, we move on to our no action items. No action items including a personnel evaluation, information only item, executive session item, and any other item where council direction is sought, but no formal city council action will occur. Public comment or testimony is not permitted during this section of the meeting. Our item under no action items is from the city manager's office. It's the Trust Commission's final report. Our chair of the Trust Commission, Sarah Mayer, will be leading. Yes, city manager?
Yes, Madam Mayor. As they come up, I wanted to seek council's permission to add a slide to the presentation. I was at the Trust Commission meeting last night, and we went through the PowerPoint presentation, and we needed one more slide.
Okay.
But we couldn't add it because we didn't finish after the 24-hour time of posting. So our request tonight, it's a photo that was taken during the presentation to Mr. Mendoza.
Without
so they're
objection.
asking to add that to the PowerPoint presentation if that'd be possible.
Without objection from council, we will allow the addition of one slide.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you.
And council.
All right, Sarah,
Are we
take
ready?
it away.
All right. So I just want to introduce who's sitting up here right now. I am Sarah Mayer. I'm the chair. You want to introduce yourself? You want me to do it?
Shane Vick, I'm co-chair of the Trust Commission.
Catherine Barrett, I'm a member of the Trust Commission.
And Erin Black, I'm a member of the Trust Commission.
Okay.
So Shane and I will do the bulk of the presentation, but we've been here before and there's been a lot of questions. So these guys did a lot of work very specifically, so hopefully they can jump in. And Catherine is going to present on some of that very specific work that she headed. Cool. All right. Shane, may I please have the clicker? Okay. The button. All right. So we are the Ad Hoc Community Trust Commission. We were established by Ordinance 6473. Our first meeting was October 25th last year. We started off with 16 members. Now we have 11. We're finishing solid with 11. 7 subcommittees. We've had 24 meetings. And during those meetings, we've had 13 different interviews or presentations given to us. So our subcommittees did a bunch of different things. We tried to spread out, figure out where our recommendations were going to come from in our community. So we had the Community Engagement Subcommittee, the Library Listening Session Subcommittee, the Code of Ethics Subcommittee, the Mr. Mendoza Award Subcommittee, LPD, Police Citizen Advisory, and Karen Gardner Subcommittee, our Co-Responder Program Subcommittee, and Communication and Engagement Subcommittee. I'm going to do you want to speak to this one? Yeah.
So the community outreach that we did on your behalf, you requested at our first meeting that we do much more community outreach than we had done. So we put together a Let's Talk Loveland page with the help of Nicole Yost, who was invaluable in putting all of this together. She gave us ideas. She did the groundwork. She put together a page on Let's Talk Loveland called the Loveland Trust Project. On that page, we had the CTC community survey, and we did some in-person and online promotion of that survey. Do you want me to continue on the next? The promotion for that survey was done in-person events, tabling events, that several of our volunteers agreed to attend at the Farmers Market, the Loveland Justice League anniversary, the Heart and Soul Juneteenth celebration. We had a table at the Chilson Rec Center, and we were at the Foot Lagoon concert. I forgot the name of the artist, but it was fabulous. Music was amazing. We've also done some social and online media promotion with Facebook, Nextdoor, LinkedIn, Twitter. And then, again, we had Nicole Yost's help in putting out 2 newsletters to promote the survey. The survey questions, there were just 4 questions on the survey. The first one, we tried to get a little bit of demographics information, so we just asked people if they knew what ward they were in. The answers that we got back were pretty evenly. There was like a 7% difference in the wards that came back. We're not there yet. Thank you. The second question was thinking about the level of trust in Loveland between residents. We're past that. Past that. What happened to page 6? I need page 6. There we go. Thank you. So thinking about the level of trust in Loveland between Loveland and the city residents, how did you feel about certain departments? We listed 6 departments and an other category. And then question 3 was if you chose other in that question 2, what other department did you have a concern about? And then question 4 was, please leave us a comment describing what you believe we can do to restore or improve trust in the city of Loveland. And now, we had 544 responses, again, across the board in different wards. No surprise at all. This kind of parallels the city survey that you did. Loveland Fire Rescue Authority, aces. Everybody either has a crush on them or or just adores our fire department. Same with Parks and Recreation. The areas of concern came in for LPD with only, with 48% of the respondents saying that they did not trust the LPD, Loveland Police Department. And then 54% of the respondents said that they had trust issues with city council and or leadership. Next slide is, so when we got into the raw comments of question 3 and question 4, there were 67 pages of raw comments. And we went ahead and split those up, and we had volunteers from the commission analyze those comments, looking for themes and for specific topics that were mentioned. A couple of them, and this is the positive again, huge positive remarks for our wonderful library and for our world-class trash and recycling center. And then on the next page, we get to some negative comments. So the total comments for City Council were 315 negative comments about this body, and 192 negative comments about the Loveland Police Department. So on the next page, that we got into some specifics about those 2 biggest areas of opportunity for improvement in our city. Looking at this body, the comments that came up most were just general city council problem, perception. Serving public interests was a negative perception. Infighting among the members, lack of transparency, a lack of integrity, and a lack of accountability. So we believe that all of these concerns can and should be addressed with a strong and comprehensive code of ethics, which we have recommended. You'll find our draft of the code of ethics in Appendix A of our report. We also believe that a body is needed to be able to not only help you stay within a code of ethics that you would draft and you would adopt, but to enforce it, and this would be a body that you could go to ask questions of, and it would also be a body that would provide some cover. If there were any frivolous complaints coming across their desk, they would be able to dismiss it. Finally, question 4, we had in the Loveland Police Department, there were perceptions of issues with accountability, training, integrity, aggressive use of force, and transparency. So all of these comments contributed to our recommendations regarding the Loveland Police Department.
So as mentioned earlier, we were able to, on this last Saturday, present an award to Mr. Mendoza. Mayor Marsh was there, Interim Chief Stewart was there, the family of Karen Gardner was there, and I feel like it was really moving and a touching event. Things were finally said that a lot of the community was looking to be said. The Chief Stewart he took some accountability and made apologies for the department, which was one of our big recommendations from the beginning. Was the accountability part of trust is huge. And again, Jane D. Decker donated the award, which was awesome. As a Loveland person joining in to help another Lovelander. So we ended up with 4 areas that we focused in on based on survey results and some other things.
I'll go ahead and introduce those to begin with that. And I, like I said, just want to thank you for your time tonight. So after a long year of interviews, sessions, diving in, subcommittees, lots of intense discussions, we've come up with the big 4 areas of Loveland Police Department, Police Citizens Advisory Board, PCAB, and the Karen Garner incident, right, which was in our ordinance to start looking at the co-responder program, communications and engagement, and then lastly, we'll go over those code of ethics. So all those that we broke down from the surveys, our discussions, our interviews, all that stuff come down to basically these 4 areas that are going to be recommendations. And you got to remember that our ordinance was to rebuild or come up with recommendations to hopefully rebuild trust between the city government and our community. So that's what these recommendations all are around.
Cool. All right. So starting with the LPD, PCAB, and Karen Gardner, most of these can be referred to the Jensen and Hughes. They did a great job. The city hired them, spent a lot of money. They put a lot of work into it. So between Jensen and Hughes and then the implementation plan that Chief Stewart has been working on, we can mostly refer to them. So our 1.1, accept and implement Jensen Hughes recommendations. We're going to see that a lot. So 5.1 to 5.4, 5.5, 2.15, and 2.6. These refer to community and citizen policing, citizen oversight. We have a group that currently works with LPD. What's their name?
The PCAB?
PCAB, yes. So to override that a little bit, fix it up, make it more effective. It is currently not very effective. And make sure that they're getting information on the implementation plan. Again, tons of time and energy went into that implementation plan. Mayor Marsh has it right there. It's huge. Yeah. And there's so much to it. So keeping everybody informed of what's happening, that's crazy important. Do you want to keep going?
Yeah.
Jump in.
We're moving on to 1.6. So, ensure that LPD is actively continually addressing community perspective section from the Jensen Hughes. And then 9.01 completes written community engagement. Obviously, that's a huge area. Being in first response work myself, anytime we can engage in the community, that's huge. You got to be transparent nowadays. Base LPD community engagement plan, all that community-oriented policing and what philosophies they adopt. And like I said, all these stuff that we go through are in our appendix. Hopefully you guys will bounce back and forth between that because we come up with not only the recommendation, but we also give you some examples of opportunities to be able to build some of those things. So as we move down through the rest of this, I didn't want to do death by PowerPoint by any means. Some of the big things, like I said, are all, like Sarah said, the Jensen Hughes, right? You paid a lot of money for that. They actually did a really good job and talked to a lot of people. One of the big things I'll point out too, right? The duty to intervene. We felt that was a huge issue, right? Require LPD, offer and require peer bystander intervention training for all officers and create a standalone duty to intervene. Policy separate from what they already have. That was evident in some of the Karen Garner videos that came out. Policies that state additional training associated with any new policies, procedures, department culture, implementation, plan recommendations be offered to officers during the regular workday shift hours. That's huge. I know Interim Chief Stewart talked about that in some of his implementation plans when we interviewed those kind of things. Anything else you want to point out? Jump on there.
I just want to jump in there. The way that policies have been rolling out and changing because of the events that have happened are a little overwhelming to some of our officers. So to make sure that they have the opportunity to review that on work time so they're not being sent home with these things or just having to sign something that they don't quite understand, that was critical. Because we can make all these policies, we can encourage new policies to be written, but unless they're understood by the people who are they're going to be yeah, they're going to have to implement those policies. Nothing can change, right? So that was majorly important. And then the EIS system, early intervention system, we have a huge chunk in our appendix about just the funding it would take, and it's not that much money. Erin, can you jump in? It was like
About $3,000 a year is what Sergeant Bartness explained to me that it would take to tailor that system.
and that could make huge changes to the group. Can you expand on early intervention systems?
Early intervention systems are used to red flag officers' behavior, and so they can have a myriad of different responses. It can be a letter, it can be maybe training, and agencies are using this, and they have certain indicators that they use, and that's how they tailor their system. And our EIS system was not functioning properly until just recently, and it is behind the times on the indicators that it uses. And so when I spoke with Sergeant Bartnett, he was totally open to tailoring that system and in agreement and support of that. Kind of really taking a hard look at what indicators we need in our system to tailor it to be most effective. And our email correspondence, basically he said, and I have this in the appendix part, he talked about that they would need a little bit of training and a little bit of funding for that. But I do feel like with that support from him, that's definitely a recommendation that City Council can get behind.
All right, so then we have so many of the LPD things. But again, most of that, you've had our report, and it's all expanded on greatly. But we'll be down for some questions later. So then, recommendation.
Go back one.
Oh, back one.
So one of
yeah.
the big things at the community is 1.23. We noticed that during interviews, going back through news reports, going back through how that all happened. Horrible. It didn't appear from the time it all come public to the time we ended up now that anybody from a city council, as the family pointed out, until the Mr. Mendoza's award had stood up and said in any public forum, this is awful and we need to do something about it. So that was one of our biggest things, right? That was one of your questions, and one of the things that you wanted us to do is find out what would rebuild that trust. Anytime we say sorry, even without the tune of millions of dollars, it's a huge trust builder within the community.
All right, so recommendation 2 was about the co-responder program. Do you want to go, Shane?
I will. So having a little bit of, obviously, insight into this issue, one of the things that's happening around the country is we have a police-first model within the city of Loveland, which basically means when you call 911 with a mental health issue, a welfare check, what happens is they send 2 police officers to deal with that situation. As we look across the nation, we're starting to notice that there are several big cities, Portland, Oregon, Denver, Colorado, et cetera, which are in your index, that are getting away from sending police officers first to a community responder model, which would send, for example, a co-responder, a mental health type person, a paramedic, and social workers together. With that being said, right, it goes through a dispatch center that then qualifies that, because if you have someone with a weapon, you're going to send a police officer, period, right? We're not going to send our co-responders and paramedics into dangerous situations, but we do believe that would probably take out about 1,300 calls out of your city police officers to put them back in the streets to deal with crimes. But we have to build it for the city of Loveland, if that makes any sense. We can't just adopt someone else's plan because it worked for their city. We have to come up with ours. The stakeholders, professionals to build that community responder model, to meet the rising number of behavioral health crisis calls. Those are on the rise, and we all know that from, especially since March of 2020. And then we just kind of put a 1-year time frame for that committee to be formed or be able to develop. And when we mean stakeholders, There are millions and millions of dollars sitting out in Benner Health Systems, UC Health Systems, medical health systems that, because I know we've taken it to the citizens, right? We're building a new facility over off of Wilson, those kind of things. But when reality comes, we got to get the big players in board. So those are the recommendations kind of on that. And like I said, in the index later in question time, if we want to go over some of those. And just to make a plug, our new chief for the Thompson Valley EMS system came from Denver, and he's well familiar with one of those programs. So,
Okay.
Right. Communication and engagement. Again, acknowledge when things go bad. That's the first. How do you build trust? You say, hey, we goofed. Here's how we can make it better. And starting with Karen Gardner, like we said, it is very important to say, this happened, and here's how we go forward, and we're sorry it happened. Address the 6 areas of concern, again, from Jensen and Hughes. They work so hard on that, and there's so much to it that can be used immediately. They've already done their research. We don't have to be researchers. They've done it. And then build the partnerships within the community to use people's experiences that they have to better our systems. And then, again, create a storytelling initiative. Use people, right, to build trust and decrease polarization. You guys all have stories, too, that can help and to communicate with people who might not connect with you. And, yeah, that's... Anything else? You guys want to jump in? Good. We're a big team, so I'm going to make sure everybody gets to talk. All right, Code of Ethics. Shane's on this one.
So going through, and I'm going to jump down in your packet. I think it's believes page 23. I'm going to refer to that several times, 23, 24, and I believe 25. Basically, Commissioner Scholl and one of our past commissioners, sitting in the back. Natalie Walsh. Yes, thank you. Commissioner Walsh actually brought forth, and I started doing some research along with them, that we noticed that each individual department may have like a what's right, what's wrong, what's not right, what's not wrong, right? Some sort of, but we didn't see anything in general for the city of Loveland, ironically, that jumped out at us, other than in some city ordinances kind of scattered all over the place. So one of the things, as Commissioner Barrett pointed out earlier, is that through all this, there were some interesting things that had happened, which led them to come up with this code of ethics. So our subcommittee put those together, which starts on page 23, right? Adopt this code of ethics. We recommend that immediately. Both elected officials, executive level city staff, that reflects the pillars of trust that we established, which you can read. And I can reread those if you'd like.
To be some confusion, he's talking about page 23 in the actual report.
Oh, in the actual report,
big
yeah,
report.
not slide, sorry. Because I'm going to jump to that here in a minute.
Okay.
So you have the slides and then the actual report, page 23 starts
So
area 4.
area
Attachment
code,
two.
code of ethics, okay. Area 4. Yeah, attachment 2.
We felt it very strong, so I'll jump down in just a second. Adopt the code of ethics immediately. Both elected officials, executive level city staff, that reflects the pillars of trust established by the Community Trust Commission. Those are listed in area 4, and I can read those in a minute. Adopt a policy that requires a signed code of ethics to be posted on each of the council members' biography contact page on the city website. That goes along with the transparency and community engagement part of that. Right, and form an ethics commission / committee to receive, investigate, and make recommendations on any ethics complaints made against members of city council and or within your own city departments. So if I jump to page 23, 24, right? So I'm going to read this statement of purpose for you. The Community Trust Commission established the 8 pillars of trust as a basis of establishing standards of trust and accountability within the city of Loveland. Those 8 pillars are caring with intent, contractual trust, open and transparent communication, honesty, dependability, consistency, competency, and timeliness. And believe me, there was a huge discussion on timeliness. It all come down to just get things done in a timely manner. Right? So as we move on to page 24, Those are the basis of all that, right? So number one, act within the public interest. Recognize that stewardship of the public interest is a primary concern. Acknowledge that the city officials work for the common good of the people of the city of Loveland and not for private or personal interest. They will assure fair and equitable treatment of all persons, claims, transactions coming before them. Comply with the spirit and letter of law of the city policies. Members shall comply with laws of the nation, the state of Colorado, the city of Loveland, in the performance of their public duties. Conduct themselves appropriately and respectfully. The professional and personal conduct of members while executing their office must be above reproach and avoid even the appearance of impropriety. Members shall refrain from abusive or intimidating conduct, personal charges, verbal attacks upon the character or motives of other members, councils, boards, committees, and commissions, the staff, or public. The expectation extends to conduct in public meetings and social media. Respect for the process. Members shall perform the duties in accordance with the process and the rules established by City Council. Ensure professional conduct of public meetings. Shall prepare themselves for public issues, listening courteously, attentively to all public discussions before the body, and focus on the business at hand. Members shall refrain from using electronic devices other than laptops for notes to communicate among members other than during public meetings. No email shall be sent during meetings from said devices if used for note-taking. Cell phones should not be used during meetings, and members are expected to honor the role of the chair in maintaining order. It's the responsibility of the chair to keep the comments and the members on track during public meetings. Members should honor efforts by the chair to focus discussions on the current agenda items. If there's disagreements about the agenda, the chair's actions, those objections should be voiced politely, with reason, following procedures outlined in parliamentary procedure. Practice civility, I can never say that word, sorry, civility, decorum, and debate. Difficult discussions, tough challenges, and particular points of view and criticism, ideas, information are legitimate elements of a debate by a free democracy in action. Members shall make best efforts to practice civility, I can never say that, and decorum during discussions and debates. I'll work on that. My English teacher's rolling over right now. Avoid personal comments that are offensive, proactive, or overly theatrical. If personally offended by the remarks of another in the conduct of public business, the offended member should make notes of the actual words, use a call for a point of personal privilege to challenge the other members to justify or apologize for the language used. Again, right? Apologize for not being nice. The chair will maintain control of the discussion. Demonstrate effective problem-solving approaches despite any disagreements. City Council and city representatives have a responsibility to show how individuals with disparate points of view can find common ground and seek compromise and benefits of the community. Role of the city manager and city attorney in public meetings is the highest ranking city employees that represent the city government. The city manager and city attorney shall strive to act community leaders, be open, honest, and available for community discussions, and work solely in the best interest of the city and residents of Loveland. City council conduct with city staff. Elected officials and appointed officials shall not disrupt city staff while they're in meetings, on the phone, or engrossed in performing their job functions to have individual needs met. City Council shall not attend city staff meetings and shall avoid intrusions into city office buildings unless requested by said staff. City Council members must continually aware their presence may be construed to imply support, show partiality, intimidate staff, or hamper staff's ability to do their job effectively, and must take every precaution to avoid appearance of impropriety. Number 6, base decisions solely on merit. They shall base their decisions on merits of substance and the matter at hand. Rather than unrelated considerations, make adjunctive decisions, those decisions where members are called upon to determine and apply facts peculiar to the individual case. Members shall maintain an open mind and shall base their decisions on facts presented at the hearing and the law. If other facts need to be considered, the items shall be tabled until such facts can be presented. Number 7, communication. For matters pending before the body, members shall refrain from receiving information outside of an open public meeting or agenda materials. Members shall publicly disclose all substantive information that is relative to a matter under consideration to the body, which they may have received or sources outside the public decision-making process. If there's any conflict of interest for matters not otherwise governed by the city charter, Article 5, Code of Ethics, which is, like I said, some of this comes from that. and to assure their independence and impartiality on behalf of the common good. Page 26, members shall use their best efforts to refrain from creating an appearance of impropriety in their actions, decisions. Members shall not use their official positions to influence governmental decisions in which have the following: a material financial interest, an organizational responsibility or personal relationship which may give the appearance of conflict of interest, or a strong personal bias. Members who have potential conflict of interest regarding particular decisions shall disclose that matter of Ethics Commission Committee and reasonable cooperate with Ethics Commission Committee to analyze the potential conflict. Members shall disclose investments, interests, real property, source of income, and gifts that will affect or be affected by a particular decision, and if they have a conflict of interest regarding the particular decision, shall not, once the conflict is ascertained, participate in the decision, shall not discuss, comment, or matter in any way or person including. And last, number 9, receipt of gifts and favors. Members shall not take any special advantages of services or opportunities for personal gain by virtue of the public office that is not available in public general. They shall refrain from accepting any gifts that are greater than normal value, favors, promises, or future benefits which might compromise their independent judgment or actions and give the appearance of being compromised. That, ladies and gentlemen of the City Council, is your code of ethics that we, as a trust commission, one of the things I want to add is Commissioner Barrett pointed out in your appendix 2, we gave an idea of an ethics committee and commission that wouldn't have to be more money spent, that we believe that each department can probably come up with somebody, and you form that with already paid members of your city staff, city council. Therefore, it's not another financial burden, because we believe as a commission that this is one big thing, so we don't want it a financial excuse of not happening.
I just wanted to say, there were 16 of us when we started. We were from all different backgrounds. I'm a chicken farmer. We got a mom. We got a realtor, EMS, which was, I don't know. Sorry. But like, we all came together to work to create this, and it could have been 16 people who never got anything done, but we worked amazingly hard. Hours were spent out of the day. I don't know how many phone calls we were on, but I want to thank them. And I want to thank you guys for creating us and creating new friends and challenges for us to work together on. And then so we've spent all this time and we've done a ton of work. And so I'd like to ask Council, what are your next steps and how can we stay informed?
Right. Well, that's kind of the conclusion of your presentation. And so I'll lead off by thanking you, everyone here today, and those that dropped off along the way. We kind of interviewed you, put you on a committee, and turned you loose and asked you to find your own way. I am very impressed with what you have brought forward today. These are all my sticky notes. I have dog-eared pages. I have lots of notes in your suggestion. There's a couple of things that I might tweak. The gifts and favors, I would say we should follow the state in that it's a $50 cap annually per any entity or person that would. So there is some tweaking I would do, but overall, I am in agreement with what you have brought forth. And I thank you for the hours and that you've put into this. It's admirable. It's impressive. I mean, job well done. And where we go from here, I would like to see a rule of 4 that we look at adopting many of these recommendations. So I will propose a rule of 4 that we, look at this, have these come back before us in a study session, and we decide which ones we want to move forward with. Can I get three counselors? Yeah, I'm asking for a rule of 4, and then of course you can.
Yeah, I support it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Councilor Sampson, your light was on. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I too am impressed. Just even putting this presentation together would have taken most bodies a couple months at least, and the amount of work that you guys got done in 24 meetings, right? It was 24. And then all of the time that you spent out in the community doing the surveying and the work that you did to compile all the survey information and read through everything. And I mean, it's insane what you did. First 16 people plus 2, then now 11 people. It's just bananas. And you guys did this knowing that you had a hard stop, most likely, right? Like, I'd love to see this commission continue. And as you know, I was not a supporter to begin with, but what you have done with this is incredible. I do think that you are doing the work. No, it's whatever I want it to be.
This is a no action item, so it's.
Yeah. I do think that the work that you have done should be continued because I think it's increasing the trust in our community. I really do. So I appreciate that. I also am bummed that this was created as a no action item because you are asking us to take action. I'd like for us to take action. We created you to help us take action. And there are some really astounding finds in here as far as the lack of trust, especially in this particular body. And even though I'm sure there's plenty of people who would like to point fingers or whatever, as a body, we need to do better for our city, period. And I really believe adopting, at the very least, the code of ethics, but really I think everything that you put before us is worth, reading through, fine-tooth comb, considering, and I really, really like, personally, almost everything that was in here. It's funny you picked out the nominal, because that was the same thing I was thinking. That first. Then I wanted to ask about a couple questions when you guys went through things and what you were recommending. So the first one is, so recommendation 1.16 for the police, the LPD, says you wanted to denounce the quota for contact. I think I just made a weird note, so I don't know if that's even what it said. 1.16, if I could. Awesome. Denouncing the practice of quotas for the number of contacts made each shift by officers. So when you say number of contacts, does that mean contacts that result in a ticket or some sort of action, or just contact in general?
Contacts, period. If somebody waves down an officer on the side of the road to ask direction, that's contact.
So do you find, because when I think of the quotas, I think of like a minimum, right? Like, we want our officers engaging, we want them to be in the community, we want them to reach out and talk with people. What was the reasoning behind that one in particular?
So there's it comes down to more of a morale issue with officers, and also I don't know how to say that nicely. So just explain it. So if somebody goes to like a motorcycle crash and they're there for 5 or 6 hours, but they're supposed to have 10 contacts that day, but they need to be there for that entire time, they get marked down, or they can. They have previously in the department. It's currently not a policy, but hearing from officers, it has been in the past, and it's more of, what do you call that? Aaron, you want to jump in?
I think it was an unspoken policy within the department, and I actually spoke with Interim Chief Stewart about this, and he's in complete support that should be. He actually talked to Chief Ticer about that he completely disagreed with that, and that's why we feel like it should be a written policy denouncing quotas.
Okay. It also encourages officers to maybe not take a call. They know maybe it's a mental health crisis and it's going to take a while to work through it, but that person really could use them. But they could go and do 4 or 5 other things and get those. So it encourages them to pick and choose where they go, and it shouldn't. They should do what they need to do.
Right. Okay. I like that now that it's been explained, so thank you. I just didn't really know that I fully understood it. And then, let's see, review policies on work time. Oh, so you mentioned that all these new policies and that you're encouraging the department to review these for the officers to review them during work time versus taking them home. So if that isn't already a city standard, like across the city, which it very well could be, but if it's not, it needs to be, I would say, because anything that's work-related should be done on work time, in my opinion, on the clock. So I really liked that one. I like your community response model. And you were saying, and I don't remember your name, sir. I'm sorry.
I'm Shane.
Shane.
Yes,
Okay, thank you. First of all, thanks for, you may have been in my home. Are you you're Thompson Valley
I'm a captain on B shift for Thompson Valley EMS,
for quite some time?
28 years.
Okay, so you've probably been to my house. We have you guys out occasionally, so thank you. And I just want you to know, I love TVMS. You guys are incredible.
Thank you.
But I also wanted to say that you talked about the new captain, or the new, not captain, but the new director.
Our new chief.
Chief being from Denver, and they have the STAR program, I think, there, right?
Correct.
Is that, yeah. So right after this happened, we talked about this up here. I don't remember if it was a rule of 4, but that's kind of how the conversation of the co-responder began, was looking into those models, and I had brought that up at one point. And then, of course, Mayor Marsh has been a huge supporter of that as well, and even looking for additional co-responders. So I'm really glad to see that recommendation, and I hope that we do decide to make a rule of 4 to look at these further, because I do think that our city would benefit a lot from that. Like you said, given all the crises and what's going on in Fort Collins, or what they're building. I love the storytelling initiative, and I would love if you guys were still meeting, that you could expound on that a little bit for us, because I think that's super neat, unless you'd like to do it right now.
Welcome.
This is Tara.
Tara.
Hi. So, I actually have a personal friend, and I put her information because she is super excited. She works for Chaffee County. And so that is how they're kind of tackling the divisions among their residents in that county, because they have really deep divides. And the storytelling is a really powerful way for them. Like when they're coming up with a new, like kind of even how we have our homeless situation and how the city's really trying to tackle that. So how a story initiative would do it is they would have stories of like the person working but can't afford the house, living in their car. And they'd have the business owner next to the campsite. And they just have all these different perspectives given in a really human way. And it helps people to understand each side of the story. And it makes it a little easier to kind of move the entire community to support the decisions being made. And they're really powerful. And then it connects the people living here. So you feel a real pride in your community. You feel like you're a part of that community. And then you can use it for marketing and say, look at all these awesome people in Loveland, and you should come. And, people are really creative with how they use it. That's the way Chaffee County has been using it. And so then I gave several other examples of how the different towns are using it to really bring their community together and give voices to all the different parts of their community so that everybody feels invested in making it a better community.
Right. I love that. I love it. It would be, something I'd like to look further into. And then your code of ethics, I'm just so grateful for that. That was actually one of the things back in 2019 that I said that I campaigned on. We need an ethics commission, because we do, I think. Everyone should be accountable to somebody. And while we're accountable to our voters, at present, clearly, we're not doing, or our residents, we're not doing a very good job of being accountable to them according to survey results, both this and the community survey. So we have a significant room for improvement, and I think that would help. That being said, I just want to say thank you all so very much. You did something that I would never have signed up to do and would not have been good at. And I'm so glad you did, because you were amazing at it. And you saw something in this commission and in the city and in this opportunity that I didn't see, that I think many others didn't see when it was at first, at conception. So I just really appreciate you for all your work and for making something incredible out of, not a whole lot to start with. So thank you.
All right, and Councilor Fogle and Foley, when I looked over, both your lights are on. I don't know which one was on first.
Age before beauty, go ahead.
Thank you. First, I want to thank the commission. I was not on council when you were created. You were created, in my opinion, with a daunting task and a very big box to put a single point into. I do feel that your dedication that was given to the city is to be commended, and I thank you for that. When I was digging through this, obviously I look at myself first because it starts here. You know, anytime you want to build trust, anytime you want to build confidence in somebody, you got to look in yourself first and have that humility. So I obviously started reading. I was like, all right, let's read what the comments are. And certainly, I know there's always going to be negative, but I'm also looking for the positives too. What's right and what's wrong? I do that every week. After council, I will actually go through, just like a coach does on Monday morning after the Friday night football game, and I analyze what went right, what went wrong, where did it go off the rails, and what could we do better. But also, hey, I feel good about what I did, right? So the first thing I did was went and looked at, obviously, slide 10, and I feel bad because Casey Mullins left, and she wanted me to look at slide 10. Well, I did look at slide 10, and I see I had seven total comments in there. However, Dylan, if you could, go to the city study packet session tab, the attachment 3. It's in the information that was with the packet. So you had the PowerPoint presentation, and then I believe it's attachment 3.
That's so cool.
Wow. We still have that problem.
Psychedelic.
On your rooftop fire. Oh.
Rooftop fires.
What are you going to?
It's this one of, I think, oh, no, he's going to one from the community survey, I think. You're asking for something
It's
from
attachment 3.
on the community
That's the one that
survey.
has all of the open comments on it.
Oh,
Yeah, that one.
I thought he meant the community survey.
So in the packet, it's
Okay.
attachment 3.
Okay, attachment 3.
So while we're waiting for her to pull that up, is this where you got the information that you compiled the slides?
So the raw comments
Yes.
from questions 3 and 4 are in the packet in the attachment. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, that was divvied up by the entire commission. We each went through every page of comments, and if there was a specific person mentioned or a specific topic or a issue, a concern, we made a tick.
Okay. So, Dylan, do me a favor
We're gonna blow that up.
and hit Control F. And find the word Foley in that document. Okay. In that, how many times up there does it say the word Foley is in that entire document? 2 of 4. 4 times. 4 times I'm mentioned in there. Now please go back to the PowerPoint presentation, slide 10. How many does that say I have? 7.
That's true.
Okay. You can go back, and I've done it where I've said Dana. I've said Dana Foley, and it doesn't matter how many different ways I try to find it. I'm in there 4 times. and I'm looking for 7. If there's 6 negatives, I want to know what those are. Okay? But then that got me digging, and I started digging. And we can go through here on that other attachment, and we can put McFall in there. McFall's going to come up 3 times, but yet in here he's 6 times. Overcash, it says it's 34 times on slide 10. But actually, it was 47. Fogle was mentioned 20 times in that slide deck, but it was really 24. Olson was 10, but really 12. Malo was 7, but really 4. Ball was the only one that was correct. Because then when we would put Marsh or Mayor, there's a total of 26 with 13 and 13, but when you tie those two together, there's 47 for the word mayor, and there's 13 for the word marsh. Sampson's listed for 3 times, but yet there's 5 total. Now, to the credit, they did misspell her name. They love putting a P in there.
I know it.
Right? So, like I said, that was important because I do like, the most important thing to me is hearing what the citizens say. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean that once it's said that I have to act for that particular citizen, because there's a lot of other citizens that might have a different version.
Right.
Okay? One of the reasons I ran was because of the way the Karen Gardner case was handled. Because of what I know on the insurance side of things, of how liability cases actually work, and what the legal ramifications require. And loose lips sink ships. And unfortunately, that's why the public didn't hear a lot, and it was left to fester. And in my thing, I was always like, hey, you've got to be able to get out there and say what is going on. You mentioned in your report, one of the recommendations was moving fast. I love moving fast. If you've seen me try to spur everybody through to like, let's get through the meeting so we can get business done, we're doing it. Exactly. But this is an important piece. It's important to make sure that the public understands why we're thinking the way we are. Pick up the phone. Don't throw something out and expect an essay. Pick up the phone and let's have a conversation again, people. That's the thing I like to see, is I want to hear from what the citizens say. I don't want to live in an echo chamber. I never have. Okay? It's important that when we have these incidences, and if you've noticed, I've noticed how the city has taken a more proactive role when incidents occur to get a message out to the public of what's happening and what's going on versus what was happening before. It was everything was tight-lipped, and that was a detriment. And I noticed it, I saw it, and that was one of the reasons why I ran, because I wanted to make that difference. So from that standpoint, I look at the ethics thing, and I kind of sit and I'm like, you know, I did swear an oath. And when you think about the core fundamentals of ethics, it goes back to the Constitution of the United States. That's the core of ethics right there. I swore an oath to uphold it and protect it. I swore an oath to uphold and protect the Colorado Constitution as well, and to live by the city charter. I will fulfill that oath, and it's not the first time I've taken it. I defended it before. The question I've got, City Manager, do we currently have an ethics policy?
You're stealing my question.
It might be better to have the city attorney.
Or city attorney? Okay.
That's it.
Mayor?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Go ahead.
We currently do have, the city staff does have an ethics policy that relates to them. Council is regulated by the charter, and the charter also incorporates parts of the state statute. So there are a number of ways that council is regulated to be ethical.
Thank you. And so the question I've got for the commission is, what are the key differences between what you're asking for as opposed to what is already there?
So if I may, the current code of ethics is Article 5, and it has, in the charter, it has 3 sections, 3 paragraphs, and they're all having to do with conflicts of interest. Our code of ethics is it's not something that we expect you to sign off on. It's what we believe would be a comprehensive start to really create a code of ethics that is going to do all of the things that you talked about, making sure that we're all working in integrity, that we're respecting each other, that there is so much more than these 3 paragraphs in our code of ethics recommendation. Plus, there's a recommended enforcement body that the state of Colorado uses, and that's in your Appendix F.
That's a state of Colorado.
Legislature.
Right.
The other piece of this to add to Commissioner Barrett is that as when Commissioner Scholl and Walsh brought this, I started diving in and communicating with the city attorney as well, because I was like, okay, a city this size and a city council this big, I was surprised. There are pieces of codes of ethics throughout your charter, just not all in one place. This puts it all organized in one place where you can go turn, any citizen can go turn, community member can go turn and say, did my ward councilor sign off on this code of ethics, and are they acting ethically? And I think that's the biggest thing, because all the pieces are there throughout the charter. They're just not all in one place.
Okay. And then another question I've got is, on the recommendations, how much of that overlaps the Jensen Hughes report?
A lot.
A lot of it.
So what is different?
Yeah, Aaron, you want to? Yep.
If you'll reference the LPD PCAB section of the report in the appendix, where each recommendation there's additional information included. Let's see, what page number would that be?
Going to start on page 6.
Probably after
Page 7.
the recommendation for City Council to offer the community an opportunity to interview applicants for the LPD chief position. After that, I would think, in the appendix. There are a segment of these recommendations that did not come from the implementation plan, such as creating a policy denouncing quotas. That didn't come from the Jensen and Hughes. The recommendation to have clear communications that are formal and coordinated and similar when LPD lieutenants and sergeants are rolling down all of these new policies and procedures to their officers. That wasn't part of the Jensen and Hughes plan. Funding the recommendations, that wasn't part of the plan. A public statement of apology for Karen Gardner incident, that wasn't part of a Jensen and Hughes plan. The code of ethics was not part of a Jensen and Hughes plan. And in fact, Jensen and Hughes, as far as the co-responder recommendations, just was in support of the current program and thought that that was a great way to address the concerns with our behavioral health crisis that happened in our community. And so we really expounded upon that. And actually, one of your comments at one of our previous reports, we discussed in our meeting about, let's relook at this. this as a program, and is this a good fit for our community, the model that we're using, instead of just adding additional co-responders. Let's really do a deeper dive into this, and that's how we came up with the recommendation to remove the police first model. So that wasn't necessarily part of the Jensen and Hughes recommendations either. And a lot of the communications, we just got specific with engagement and trying to communicate with the community. And I'll say to you, as far as your comments about you want to hear from the community and what they have to say, you guys have been receiving, as a body, information and data and comments from the community for many years. And I have written down the 2019 community conversations that you guys did. The responses included, what is keeping us from making the progress we want to see for Loveland? We need better communication in the city. People aren't stepping up and taking responsibility. In your 2020 retreat, City Council retreat, you talked about, in your 7 strategic focus areas, surveys. Collect the input for decision-making and prioritization and city goal setting. We're giving you that data. The CDC survey is not much different with responses than what the city survey came back with. The 22, just this year, it was respect for residents, honesty, open and transparent with the public. Those were all issues that came up in the CDC survey as well. The 2021 city employee engagement survey talked about areas that need some improvement, trust with senior leadership actions and consistency. So there's been many years that you have engaged with the community as a body. They have given you recommendations and their thoughts, and we're still dealing with these same underlying challenges.
Well, understand, I'm a new counselor. I don't know what might have been told personally to other counselors, even up here.
No, this is
And
public information,
I
sir.
understand that. But I also understand that there are issues that are affecting them today.
These same issues. It came out of
Or
your
they
survey.
have nothing to do with even that. It's just their own living of what's happening. I've had citizens call me and ask, hey, why is my road not fixed? Then it's about going out and getting that citizen their answers to their questions. And that means maybe communicating with the city manager. That then means getting to the public works director to find out the real answer. And then I can respond to that citizen, or you'll often see on the public relay that somehow the public works folks will address it directly to them and CC Council on it as well, because that is the way to constructively get to council, is by reaching out what your issues are. If you can't go to the city and get the answer, then you bring that to council. We have the ability to set policy. The city manager has the responsibility to execute that policy and execute running the city. If that's not happening, we need to know about it, that something's not happening. However, when it does happen, that's when we reach out, and oftentimes the city manager will direct us to go directly to that department head, because he doesn't have that answer, but that director of that department head does. And I call that in the EMS world, because I too was in the EMS world for a number of years. In the EMS world, that's called a standing order for the protocol. And as long as the city manager understands what that protocol is, that's how council in the past has worked. That's why you sometimes have seen other communications from that. In terms of this, I mean, I do appreciate the above and beyond. I appreciate the co-responder aspect of it. I think it's budding in the state. It's not just in Chaffee County, I'll tell you that. It's all across the state.
Sir,
Where that's happening, and it's great that people are getting out there and trying to understand a better way to deal with the mental health crisis as we see it. It's not just the mental health, but it's also the drug addictions, et cetera, that all compound itself to the homeless issues that we're all experiencing and we're all seeing. We're seeing it across the state. I'm happy that you took that and you grabbed that. It is something that we need to move forward with and look for other ways to tackle it. I personally want to see us doing an MHT program, very similar to the EMT program, where you have mental health technicians out there instead of just emergency medical technicians. That way it's actually a certification that officers can take, that firefighters can take, that paramedics and EMTs can also take, or it could be a standalone on its own. One of the #1 degree programs at CSU is a psychology degree. They could also use those skills and bolt that on as well and become part of the solution. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Sir,
I think Aaron wanted, I noticed Aaron first wanted to.
So
respond.
I completely agree with you on that last point. However, I want to get back to putting out surveys. Having community engagement conversation sessions, and then what are you doing with that information? Because we're in 2022, and the surveys are saying we're having the same issues.
Well, let me
and
jump in
wait
here,
a minute,
and
wait a minute,
I'm
sir,
Aaron has
I'm
the
still
floor.
speaking.
Aaron has the floor.
Thank you. So when you,
My question's been answered. I'm ready to answer another question.
She has the floor.
so my point is, I don't understand then why there's a community survey
Point of order.
if you're explaining to me that there's a different
Point of order.
protocol that you would like to
Point of order.
receive from the public to city
Point of
council.
order.
I'm letting her finish her
Foley, that's
sentence.
not, that's
What
part of
is
the
your
maturity
state, your
that they
point
talk
of
about.
order?
This is exactly why the survey results have the
There's
results that
a
they
point of
have.
order on the,
And I've said, state your point of
My
order.
point-
4 requests.
my point of order is my question has been answered. This is additional volunteered information that I didn't ask for.
You provided a lot of commentary, and she is responding to your commentary.
I
This
don't
is
need
not-
any more. This is for me.
This is an
This is for me.
information-only item. It's not our typical thing where we have a presentation, we ask questions, we read a motion, we have the public comment, and then we come back for a discussion. This is just straight discussion. She's allowed to have her comments.
I'm just asking the protocol. If it's not a community survey, if it's not a community listening session, then you're explaining that the public has to abide by a different protocol to actually reach city council's ears. That's what I heard you saying, and I want clarification. Is that what you're saying to the public? That the surveys don't matter? The community listening sessions don't matter? In fact, there's a specific protocol that you would like
let's
the
talk
public
about this
to do.
survey.
Please do.
Okay. What's your scientific data for this survey?
I'm not a scientist, sir. I'm a Loveland resident who
Okay.
volunteered.
So when I look at surveys, like I looked at the survey last week, there was some scientific data and methodology that came with it. It carries a little bit more validity. The best part of this whole survey is the open questions or the open comments in there. That's the best part of it. The analysis of this survey, it was horrible. As I pointed out, how many faults are in there? So now once I find faults in the survey, how can I trust this survey? I can't trust it. So you know what I listen to? I listen to the citizens that contact me directly.
Okay, thank you. That's what I needed to know.
That's how-
Citizens need to contact you
They
directly.
can contact me directly. They
Thank
can
you.
send an email to City Council,
Thank you.
and
So
that's
the
how they can do that.
Surveys and community listening sessions, public.
Surveys are a
Are
snapshot in
disregarded.
time, and just like you said, you want things to work faster. The one thing that I found out, the city doesn't work fast.
We did as a
Okay,
commission.
I think, Tara, you had something.
Yes, you were talking about the procedure of like when someone calls you, then you would like call city manager, and then city manager would get back to you and say you need to call the director of this department, and then you would get in touch with them, and then you get back to the citizen. So on recommendation, it's under the communications, and I just lost it. Communication and engagement. I made a specific recommendation just for that. It is 3.5, and it says prioritize strategies listed in the City of Loveland 2021 Community and Engagement Roadmap to inform, educate, and engage residents. And then the specific one was addressing the strategy of 1C within that roadmap plan. And the recommendation was to rework our city's website to be a little more like the City of Fort Collins website, where they can just, it's really easy to get that information quick. The other prioritization I recommended was 2A, where they were talking about a podcast, where somebody could interview each of the department heads and address a lot of these questions that come in from the city. And 24/7, you'd have access to that interview with that director, so that it wouldn't be a 5-step process to get the one question answered. And so I think there's ways that we can streamline the ability for our, as a community member, to find the answer without having to clog up all the phones for the directors of these departments, you know, so they spend the majority
Honestly,
of their
it doesn't
time.
clog up the phone from my standpoint.
Okay, but I think like the person in charge of electric bills might say like, oh, I spent a lot of time answering questions about why their bills are so high this month. But it would be really cool if we had like a podcast or a specific spot on our website where you could click and have that information right there. I feel like there's a lot of, not all questions, but there's a lot of very similar questions that residents have that maybe we could streamline into a website or a podcast situation, which is already on the city's agenda. So I was just saying maybe prioritize those initiatives that could kind of streamline that information to the public, so we could, you know, so it'd be easier and faster.
Sure,
Which
but
then-
at the same time, all I'm stating is that citizens have the right and the access to us on council. Every single one of us up here. Period. They can do it any way, shape, or form, whether it's calling us, whether it's talking to us. If someone brings a question to me, I try to get them an answer. And I try to get them an answer as quick as I possibly can. So that's my commitment to the citizens of Loveland, that I am available. I'm not afraid to take the hits. I'm not afraid to take the tough questions. If they come, I'll answer them. But I'm also, I'm going to be forthright with people. I don't mince words. So that's all I'm saying. Thank you.
All right, let me move on to Councilor Fogle.
Would you pull up area 4 on page 23, Moses? I have some questions for our city attorney
20, what page?
about the proposed code of ethics. I assume you've read through this, Moses?
I have reviewed it.
Slide
Okay.
22.
Could you tell me substantially what the difference is in this and the combined code of ethics from the city and from the state of Colorado that we've all sworn allegiance to already is?
So there are two primary differences that
Okay.
I would point out. One is the proposal of having an ethics commission. The other is section 5 that deals with professional conduct at public meetings, where they go through civility, decorum, comments, problem-solving approaches. Much of this is related to personal conduct, which really is very difficult to regulate because it's very objective to the person.
Mhm. Madam Mayor, is the point of this meeting to garner public input from the crowd at random, like we were hearing earlier with claps and hoorays?
We're getting feedback and information from our trust commission.
That wasn't from the Trust Commission, ma'am?
So you're talking about clapping or comments at this point?
Both, from
Okay,
the open crowd.
So, clapping is a tough one because some members of this council clapped with the audience at various times, and so it makes it really tough to rule one way one day and another. So as long as it doesn't get out of hand, I'm allowing it. But we can do a hard and fast rule that there will be no clapping, in which case.
We'll take care of that at our next
Then-
council meeting. So anyway, Moses,
So we
My point is
if I
being
can
made
ask
as I speak.
if I can ask the audience to kind of stay quiet or take it out into the lobby, please.
so really you said Section 5, Moses, and it would be very difficult. Your words again, please.
Councilmember Foley, Councilmember Fogle, this is really something where you can certainly ask people to be on the honor system, but there would be no enforcement mechanism for it,
Okay,
particularly because it is very subjective.
okay. And what was the other that you noticed?
That would be the Ethics Commission, which I know council has as one of their rules of 4 under consideration.
Yeah, we've talked about that before. One thing I want to bring up, and I want to look at really closely at number 7. Okay? Because folks on the CTC Commission, could you have operated and could you have produced the documents that you produced for us under the auspices of your number 7?
And just for clarification, number 7 being communication.
Yes, sir.
For the matters pending before the body, members shall refrain from receiving information outside.
No phone calls, no talking to each other one-on-one. That's what that says.
So when we had our meetings, right? Probably because we were so new to this process, I would say yes, that our communication tactics during our meetings, which is what I believe the
So you
aiming of
didn't
this
have
is.
any private telephone conversations among the members of your committee?
During the meeting?
Not during the meeting. No, this is open. This
No,
is
so here's one thing I can totally say in regards to City Attorney Moses, who kept us very.
He beat you thoroughly around the head and shoulders,
I
no
can't say he
doubt.
beat us. He does a very good job, right? We had to learn a few things as a commission. And one of those things is like you can't have 3 more people, right, other than meetings and all
Sure,
that kind of
just
stuff.
2.
I can stand here and say that our CTC was more scared of those rules than in violating those rules as we went through this. So I believe, in all honesty, that our number 7, yes, I think our commission operated in that.
Does number 7, in your opinion, allow for private conversations outside of the public venue between 2 members of a body?
I believe it does. So I just want to read it again, but I believe it does because it
Madam
says for
Mayor.
matters pending before the body, members shall refrain from receiving information outside of an open public meeting or the agenda materials, right? So if we break this down,
No
right?
one-on-one.
If we break this down, your rules, just like our rules, were that if you had an agenda item, it has to be in for you guys, like the Wednesday before the meeting by 5 p.m.
Certainly.
Right? So I believe that is assigned to that thing, right? So once the agenda items are set and that packet is set by Wednesday, right? If we come to you and start having a communication issue, I can't have John Malage, because I know him somehow, right? Sitting here on his cell phone during a meeting while I'm giving a presentation, asking Bob Citizen his opinion of this so I can bring it to the meeting.
Were you aware that council already outlawed use of cell phones on the dais?
Yes, and just like we've pointed out in the Code of Ethics, there are several of those areas that are already in place in the City of Council that we've just put all into one place.
Right. Exactly. The reason that number 7 stood out to me is since the institution of our Constitution and since this republic was formed, there's one word that is practiced in every body, everywhere, practically worldwide. We don't like it. It's offensive to some people. To people that find themselves on the outside of different groups, it's certainly offensive. It's called lobbying. Now, and Councilor Foley gave you the classic example of lobbying, okay? If there's potholes in your street, by the technical definition of lobbying, you are lobbying him to fix or help you get your potholes fixed the minute you call him on the phone. So under no circumstance would I ever sit still for outlawing lobbying, okay? And I doubt that our Congress would. I doubt that our Senate would. I doubt that our state judicial system would, okay? And I think your number 7 comes very close to outlawing lobbying.
You know, that's a very interesting perspective on number 7, because I know we've had a lot of communication under that. I believe that the majority of the communication for number 7 was during, like, once the agenda meeting was set, that you don't go outside during the agenda meeting set. I don't think, and here's ultimately what needs to happen, right? We've laid this recommendation out to you. You guys need to discuss it.
Oh, we do, and that's why I'm asking while you're here.
The communication thing is that I believe in one of the city council meetings there was there could have been news articles. There was an issue of potential, right, which is what caused you to outlaw cell phones use, that kind of stuff, and those new policies of communications. That was a concern by citizens brought up. That are you having these meetings outside, or are you texting somebody, or is those happening? I think that was more the intent and the spirit of number 7. However, you guys, actually, being the body, can do whatever you would like with that.
Yeah. Actually, the reason I got rid of cell phones is because it's annoying as hell. That's the bottom line.
We're in a new area.
You know, it's very annoying. It's very rude. Right. So we don't do it anymore, and that's good. Yeah. You know, it's really helped our meetings quite a bit. So the basis for the ethics policy that you've got, I submit that the vast majority of this is already in our code, whether it be city code or whether it be the state code that's laced into our city code, okay? And an ethics committee, we're already talking about looking at. We've had that on our radar for some time now, okay? And other than that, I'm not seeing much of anything new here, you know, other than the civility portion. And as our attorney has told us, that would be practically impossible to enforce. I mean, what are you going to do, spank my hand?
So
Again, Appendix F has a example of what
page is that?
Colorado Appendix F in your presentation.
His page?
Right after Appendix E. I don't have a page
I got to
number
go back.
on it.
Hold on.
Did you get it? 1 second. We have it.
I'm sorry. It is actually Appendix E, page 43.
Okay, hold on. So it's attachment 3?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hold on a second. What page in attachment?
No, attachment 2.
Oops, hold on.
Page starts on page 43, Appendix E.
Okay.
Colorado Independent Ethics Commission.
43. Hold on just a sec. I don't think I have it. Okay, it restarts. Okay. Oh. My numbers are not in order. Somehow or other. Colorado.
And as we're looking for this, we had a lengthy discussion on how do you regulate moral behavior, which we know as humans, especially this day and age, especially in the job that I do, seems to be more and more difficult as time goes on, right? If you look back to 1950 when everybody wore suit and ties to go to the grocery store, times have changed, right? We cannot, or you cannot come up with somebody or a body of people that are going to regulate moral behavior. More often that the code of ethics is just that reminder which we put those things, we felt very strongly those things in there, that if you're going to sit in a position like this, a CTC, a board, a commission, a city council member, and represent a city that's 80+ thousand people, that probably those moral things should be in your character.
I guess one of the things that, from a morality standpoint, bothers me, okay? And that is that if we want open government, if we want full disclosure, okay, then I need to maintain the right to take Councilor McFall's head off if I think he's totally out of line. I think the public deserves the right to see it.
So I totally agree with that. I just think there's a professional way to do that versus a emotional way to do that.
Well, unfortunately, they would probably always, if it was a very outrageous act, it would always lean towards the emotionality.
It does.
But I believe it's important for the public to see it, because that's the only way they know my mind, my heart, and they know what the infraction was. Because if we all take it in the back room and discuss it like...
Wait, hang on, quiet. Quiet from the audience, please.
Totally.
Where was I? Anyway,
Talking about
if we take it in the back room and discuss it, and Councilor McFall and I figure it out and nobody ever knows it happens, that is not disclosure. So this is a very fine line.
It is.
Okay? A very fine line, and with the since they started using the flag that's behind me, okay, we have things that we do. Lobbying is one of them. It's one of the fine institutions in our nation today. It's what sets us apart from communism. You can't lobby in a communist country for your opinions, but
Correct.
you can here, and I will defend that absolutely every time.
I'll defend that as well.
I'm sorry, but the question before us really was,
I didn't give you a question, ma'am.
I'm part of the commission. You directed a question toward the commission, sir. And I would just encourage everyone on the body to please read number 7. It is a very interesting interpretation of 7. That's not what it says. And as far as how you regulate behavior, the state legislature has things in place where that body takes complaints, dismisses frivolous complaints, may assess penalties for violations, and may put forward censure. That's all this is.
And each and every section of that state code is taken into our code through the charter of the city of Loveland. Correct?
Show me that. I do not see that.
It's referenced in our charter.
Councilor Fogle, what I would note is that if you do look at the Ethics Commission, they really don't address most of the material that's being proposed, because, like I've said before, you really have a difficult time regulating conduct, and so the Ethics Commission really focuses on pecuniary transactions, anything related to money.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Sarah had a comment.
Yeah. So you mentioned a few times that this is kind of redundant because you have already sworn it, but it was very hard for us to find all of these pieces. So in order, it says in our ordinance, whereas the City Council acknowledges a growing concern about the relationship between the Loveland community and its local government, that's where we were addressing this. You guys can choose to change it how you want, but having something that's all in one place that any citizen can get to, access, see that you've agreed to it, that's what builds trust, and that's what we're here for. We're not here to write that. We are not attorneys. We didn't, well, maybe there was a couple at the beginning, but we're here to help figure out where the trust broke down and where people aren't trusting the city. So this can be changed. It can be fixed how you like, and this discussion is great. We appreciate it, but we're here to try to help you build trust.
Did you look at any of the national surveys about trust between elected officials and their communities that are available on the National League of Cities?
Catherine.
Actually, I looked at the open participation survey that the city just paid for. Is that what you're talking about? No.
National League of Cities does this exact same kind of functionary that you guys have done. Okay, they do it on a national basis, and you will find that because of the current, the reasoning they use is because of the current political environment on a national basis, that public trust is eroding. It's eroding in Loveland with the elected body. It's eroding in Cincinnati. It's eroding in Bug Tussle. Okay, it's a nationwide trend. In fact, some friends of mine in the National League of Cities have been attacked. They've had their homes vandalized in cities that you would never suspect would have that problem because the public trust, because of the national political environment, has been damaged. And unfortunately, in the little old city of Loveland, there's not a whole lot we can do about that.
Oh, but there is.
Well, we can try. We can do a little bit here.
Yes.
But I mean, the overall national trend is also very reminiscent of the numbers that you found. That's National League of Cities, NLC.org.
Right. Absolutely. Totally agree with you 100%. The national trends are going crazy right now. They're going crazy all over, from corporate America through first responders to city governments. But being a citizen, born and raised right here in the city of Loveland, we can be better.
All right,
Our commission
Councilor,
was better. We figured it out.
Councilor McFall.
As somebody who sat on a commission, I want to commend you all. It's not easy. It takes a lot more time than most people think it takes when you're out there. Matter of fact, I know the packets I had on the Planning Commission were much larger than the packets I looked through here at City Council, and they took me days to get through those and try and do that. So I 100% commend you. I'm with Councilor Foley on this here. I wasn't here when the commission was first put together. I think in some ways you were given almost an untenable task. I read through the charter. I read through the ordinance, and I'm like, there wasn't a whole lot in there. So for you all to strike forth and do what you've done now, it's fine. I mean, I think you've done a good job of putting it together. I think there's a lot of things that are in there. You know, when it comes to ethics, I consider myself a very ethical person. I like to believe that everybody else has ethics. I know I've got a code of ethics that I go by at work, and a standard that we go by there. I know there's ethics that are within our charter that govern where we're at, and I think it's important. I think the biggest problem we have with ethics are that when people find a gray area, they think the gray area is okay, and when I find a gray area, I go, nope, step back into the light, go. Whether it comes to conflicts, and I know the city attorney will tell you there's numerous times I've been to him just to make, and my own ethical folks at work on conflicts of interest that happen up here. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the aspect of it there, and I think holding yourself in an ethical manner up here is good. Unlike Councilor Foley, I didn't get into this because of the Karen Garner case. I got into this because of the lack of civility on city council before I came on here, and I thought that was something that was definitely driving the lack of trust from the citizens of the city getting in here. And that's been one of my steadfast things, is trying to maintain that civility. I disagree with people all the time, but I try and disagree with them professionally to do it the way it is. Every now and then my emotions get in there. I try not to let them get in there at all. I was going to ask the question on I don't like putting things in place if there's not accountability, and I do like the aspect. And I know we're looking at the side of the commission, but I just want to commend you on what you did. Aaron, I agree with you on surveys. If you're going to put a survey out, if somebody's going to ask me a question, why? What's the response I'm getting back from this one? And I think if we've gone through survey, if you continue to ask me the same thing, and then you don't do anything, why in the hell am I answering you? I'm not even going to talk to you the next time you ask me the questionnaire. I do this in my professional life, and I think it's important for all of us to look at. There's a lot of things that we can do. I mean, if you're doing it continually on a day-to-day basis, just because you're doing it that way doesn't mean it doesn't need change. And it doesn't mean you can't look at that change. And I think there's some areas that we can look at change. I think they were brought up today. When you talk about the cell phones, I hate it. I find it very disrespectful of somebody that's in front of me. I sit at a meeting, and the first thing I tell people to do is put your phones away. Because the last thing I like in a meeting is when I'm sitting there and I'm talking or somebody else is in there presenting, and you're on your phone checking Facebook or notes or writing a text to somebody else about me. It doesn't matter what it is, but it just shows you don't care what I'm saying. And for us to do that as the citizens of the city, I think it's disrespectful in itself, and it's not behooving to us sitting up here where we're at. I'm willing to look at a lot of the things that we have in here and go where we're at. I'm not for recreating the wheel that we've got, but I am looking. I don't mind looking at a new set of rims after I've looked at the old set of rims on my car for a while. But I 100% appreciate the efforts that you all have put forth, and I thank you for your service, for your time, for this city. Completely commendable. And everybody else's talk, so I'll quit.
Thank you. Councilor Olson.
Thank you, Mayor. I was a supporter of the Trust Commission, the concept that was created largely because of the Karen Gardner's case, and I thought this is an opportunity for the community to weigh in on an issue that is a black eye to the community. I do have one question I'd like to ask the attorney, if I might.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Is it reasonable for an attorney to give advice to his clients that he should not admit culpability or in the case of Karen Gardner, make an apology while the court case is going on?
Mayor?
Yes, please respond.
Council member, it is a very strategic decision that you have to put a lot of thought into, particularly based on the potential liability. So I think that, out of the chute, so to speak, you have to be very careful in terms of not admitting liability and creating tremendous cost to the city early on until you have the facts.
And I was hoping that's the answer you would give, because it's unfortunate, I think, when you have somebody that's been injured by a government entity such as the City of Loveland or representative of the City of Loveland, you want that apology and it's not coming. And sometimes hands are tied that as much as we would like to apologize profusely, we can't do that. And I'm hoping at some point that we will be given the okay to make that apology. So at this point, I don't feel I have that freedom to do that. You as a body have invested about a year of your time, and I appreciate that. I don't take it lightly. I, like Commissioner McFall, have served on the Planning Commission. There is a lot of reading there and a lot of late nights, and so you had a lot of extended hours, a lot of reading yourself, and I thank you for that. You had to deal with a lot of opinions, and we deal with differences of opinion and positions on things. Disagreement isn't wrong. As you pointed out, it's the way of handling civilly, with civility. One of the things for me, having spent 4 prior years and then been reelected this last November, I've seen with the new councilors, I've seen a tremendous transition. I think we laugh, we joke with each other. I used to go home tied in knots, and I enjoy the meetings because I feel I have a relationship with each of these council on there that I can kid them, and we can conduct our business. We can disagree and then go out and have a beer. So I think the transition this past year has been tremendous. So I, for one, do not accept the complaints that are written in the survey, because that's old news to me. And I would agree, 4 years ago, I think that is. Well, then you point out the slides. Go back to the video. Show me where we're not. I think overall we are. So anyway, that's my opinion. And you've given us a lot of food for thought. For me, I feel we need to assess it. There's a lot of things, as you acknowledge, has already been completed, accepted by the Jensen Hughes reports, because I know the police department's working on a lot of those things. So I need to kind of know what has not been addressed so far, or is it in the process of being addressed. So from my standpoint, I just want to see where we're at from the city standpoint. So with that, thank you for committing to your time for the year, and we'll take the recommendations and we'll move forward. So thank you.
Madam Mayor, can I make a comment?
Yes, please do.
Mr. Olson, I really appreciate your comments. I understand your question to the city attorney. Can I give you an opinion of something that could have happened that doesn't change the results? And that would be this. Once that video came out, right, here's just a scenario. Let's just say in City X, the City of X police chief gathers his detectives and says, we've had an awful incident that happened. In 48 hours, I want every detective, every person investigating this thing. In 48 hours, I'm going to stand with the mayor and my city and have a result, a report of what is happening. And in 48 hours after their investigation, the mayor of City X, the police chief of City X stands there and says, our officers have violated our own policy. We have injured a citizen. Here's the results of our investigation over 48 hours. Those two officers are currently suspended or fired. The city manager then comes in and says, okay, because you are the head of this department, we are currently suspending you under investigation for the violation of this. And in 3, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever the attorney says, then we will have a final report. That's just one scenario of that. That's not admitting guilt. That's not admitting things other than the fact that you have already acknowledged that violations of a policy, right, internally were already violated. If, in my opinion, this is all our opinion, if that would have happened, I don't think it would have changed the outcome of the lawsuit, all that kind of stuff. I don't think it should have. But it does change the outcome of your citizens looking at your city government going, okay, they're on top of it. Just like me as a paramedic, if I lose my shiznit on a call in this day and age on the middle of I-25 with 15 cameras watching me, I get crucified. That's basically kind of what happened. Like I said, my humble opinion is that as we went through our investigation and looked at all that, that's just one scenario of something that could have happened. And we understand, because like I said, Moses has been amazing, in my opinion, to us in answering those questions of why that didn't happen, that kind of stuff. But to your citizens, without admitting guilt, you can at least say, hey, we had an issue. We're dealing with it. This is what happened. These are the steps we're taking. It just didn't seem that. So I offer that.
Appreciate your response, creating the scenario. I would say that when you say you've violated policy, that's an admission of guilt. So I'm not going to argue with you about it. I heard what you had to say. My point is the staff and the council got legal advice in some issue that I can't divulge.
Right.
Because,
I totally get that.
and so we followed this game plan as much as some of us did not like the particular plan. But when you're part of the team, you got to kind of follow what the quarterback says. So, but again, I know there's several people on the Trust Commission that probably don't agree with my views on things, but they're citizens of this community, and they deserve to be heard. And I appreciate the time that each of them has spent on this commission, and I thank each of you sitting before here. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Councilor, all right.
Real quick.
Sarah?
So it's been mentioned a couple times that we may have repeated some things from the Jensen and Hughes report, and we did that on purpose because we think those things are incredibly important. It's not that we stole those things and we're claiming them as our own. We think it's important. And Aaron, the policy that refers to the Blue Team report, when Jensen and Hughes came here, the LPD changed that policy immediately. It's 11.39, I can't remember. She'll find it. But they changed it immediately. But recently it's been changed back. And so we're bringing these things that we think are important to you so that you can follow up. That's why we did that.
It's
And
1.5 in your recommendations.
Yeah, because these things could change back. And like Jensen Hughes recommended that it be 15 days? 14 days that a blue team report be reviewed. And now it's back to 30. And that has to do with some staffing issues and things, but these are important, and they might be repetitive, but we want you to focus in on this. And we didn't spend a year to just read the Jensen and Hughes and just copy it. We spent a year focusing in, interviewing. Aaron met, thankfully, Interim Chief Stewart is an amazing human who spent 8 hours with Aaron going through point by point to figure these things out. So please don't just say Jensen and Hughes is already doing it. These are important.
And I will add, as far as there have been a majority of things done, I know all of you have the police LPD implementation plan, and that's what Interim Chief Stewart and I, along with Commissioner Hildebrand Schell, talked about. Because what happened is as the Trust Commission was going through the LPD implementation plan, there's a section on each one of the recommendations that says completed or in progress or delayed. And as we were going through that, we noticed that there were a lot of recommendations that were noted completed on the implementation plan, and it was insufficient, or it did not completely dovetail back to the recommendation, but it was listed as completed. And so we wanted to ensure that as this implementation plan and you all were getting updates and reports from the PD, that you understood that some of that was not accurate. In fact, there were 6 recommendations noted as completed on the implementation plan that were incomplete, or the recommendation needs further clarification. Beyond that, there were recommendations noted as pending with statements that were very unclear or wasn't included in the policy that they said they changed the verbiage in the policy. I went to the policy, it's not there. And so those were the things that I wanted to bring up to Interim Stewart to say, you know, we can't say that they're completed when they're not. And we can't say that we changed policy when we did not. And I'm hoping that this body keeps their feet to the fire on this implementation plan, because you spent a lot of money on the Jensen and Hughes recommendations. As Foley pointed out to us, a lot of money on the lights for us and staff time for the Trust Commission. And so I'm keeping up on it. I know every detail of this implementation plan, and I know exactly every detail in the Jensen and Hughes report, and I know what's not completed, and I know the reasons why it's not completed, and that should always be in here. If it's not completed or it's delayed, we need details on why the benchmarks weren't met. And there was a lot of recommendations that Interim Chief Stewart explained that it could be a staffing issue, it could be a resource issue, it could be that they don't have the time, patrol officers don't have the time. And so when they come to you to request staffing, they need it, or they're not going to be able to implement the recommendations that Jensen and Hughes recommended or that we've recommended. And in fact, most of our recommendations regarding the LPD, including PCAB reconfiguration, are supported by Interim Chief Stewart. And he was a pleasure to work with and very open. I appreciated his candor, because I also am a straight shooter, and I appreciate those that are. I like working with those people. But to echo what our chair said, these specific ones we felt like are imperative, critical to regaining the trust within the community. And for LPD, their officers need this. They were the scapegoats. The patrol officers were the scapegoats of the Karen Garner incident. And that's unfair, because we do have a lot of great officers on the PD. And it shouldn't be all on their shoulders when they go out on the streets that there are bad cops and no one took responsibility. The city still hasn't taken responsibility. They were criminally charged. Our criminal justice system held them responsible, not the city and not their own police department. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, just in brief response, thank you for acknowledging that we have some great police officers and that they bore the brunt of this situation unfairly.
And their families.
And appreciate that. When I said that we need to assess where we're at, what's been accomplished, and so forth, what you said is what I'm talking about. Is I need to go through and say some of this is in process, some of it maybe they haven't completed it as fully as we'd like, and so forth. So that's what I mean by that. So yeah, I agree with you. Thank you.
Councilor Mallow.
Thank you, Mayor Marsh. I'll try to keep this short. I think we need to wrap this up. But,
we do need to wrap this up.
I want to thank the commission. You did a great job. It's been a year coming. A lot of effort, obviously. I don't know all of you. I know those two right there, and I know they're very respectful, hardworking, diligent people, and I'm sure that's a reflection on the whole commission. So thank you. I don't get too hung up when things are repetitive. It only kind of solidifies that it may be a problem. If it's pointed out by 3 different commissions, surveys, commissions / then they're important. We ought to pay attention to it. For example, the Jensen Hughes report is huge. We've had a couple reports out on it already. We'll continue to get those reports. You had it, right? It's thick manual. It's going to take a lot of time to go through that. But the 2 recent surveys, the one by the Trust Commission, I would not call that scientific. I don't think anybody could say it's scientific. The community survey, at least half of it, the random sample part of it, was very scientific. And there's several connections there from both of them. And this is the stuff we ought to pay attention to. Under the community survey, under the Loveland government performance, I'm taking you back to last week, treating residents with respect was 53%, which is lower than benchmark. Don't ask me what benchmark is. I don't know. I could find it, but I ran out of time. Being honest, lower than benchmark. Overall confidence in Loveland government, lower than benchmark. Being open and transparent to the public, lower than benchmark. And those are, correct me if I'm wrong, some of the same repeated things in both surveys. So I don't get hung up on it. I want to listen to it. And we got a lot of work to do, and we need to sort through a lot. You're going to have to bear with us, keep track of us if you want to. That's fine. We need that. That's okay. So with that, I just want to wrap up. I know a couple of guys had their lights on, but again, thank you. And we hear you. That's all I can say. Thank you.
All right, Councilor Overcash.
Councilor Fogle.
Well, but so we're doing the
I just
first
wanted to
round.
thank you. I had the opportunity to interview each of you, Mayor Marsh and I think we started out with, I'm glad we went with 16 because with the alternates, I think that brought us to 19.
I think we
With 3 alternates?
I think we interviewed 21 and 19.
2021.
Yeah.
And that was a good experience, being able to interview everyone. I especially want to thank those who persevered to the end. There were a number of members for various reasons who left the commission midstream, and of course that puts more work upon you and to continue and get to the end of that. So thank you for doing that, because the idea was to have a good number of people to share the workload because it was a big task. So thank you very much. I'm glad we've learned a lot. We put this in place. We felt it would be, council put this in place, the group. It would be a good exercise, and actually the timing was good because there were issues, and that's the best time to really dig in and explore things. When everything's going well, people don't get serious sometimes and really look. So you've done a good job at that, and appreciate the time and effort you put into the report. I know a lot of it is being worked on, and I'm sure the city manager's been authorized to implement those suggestions that he has the power to do. And items that he has to bring back to council, he knows he has that ability to do that, and he'll hear from us as well. So thank you for your time this evening and for the many months you worked on the project.
Councilor McFall.
Just a final on the second, Madam Chair. In this, Madam Chair, Madam Mayor, my apologies, Madam Chair, and for the commission itself. Councilor Foley brought up a lot of things as far as the numbers go in there, and what I would ask you to do is to go back and look at the numbers before we get the final report. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I really appreciate that question because there were several comments made about the survey analysis. And I just want to speak to it really quickly. The city survey that was done was sent to 600, well, we got 680 responses. And as Councilor Olson pointed out, it was primarily from women of a certain age who opened the mail, presumably in the household. There was nothing scientific about that. There's nothing scientific about our numbers either. It's certainly not a statistical threshold that we have reached. However, when you look at all of these surveys lining up, the numbers line up exactly. You look at treating residents with respect. When you look at the open participation survey, you get 38% of this community thinks that residents are treated with respect. That's dismal. When you look at and I can go on and on about that, but I won't. What I want to say is that we did not use Control F to analyze our results. We had 67 pages of raw, and I mean brutally raw, comments that were painstakingly read by volunteers in our commission. And we went through those and we determined to the very best of our ability as volunteers where the issues were. And I would stand by this 100%. Is there going to be some error? Of course, there's going to be a little bit of error. But when you look at the community surveys, they looked at 10% plus or minus. That's a 20% different as being similar. It's similar. So I would say that 3 instead of 4 or 4 instead of 7, it's probably in there. I would say that it's probably in there. If you want to try to get a commission to go back through those, I'm happy to submit those results, those 67 pages, to anybody who wants to analyze them.
No, and I appreciate that. I'm just trying to beat Sampson. I figured we get the extra points and I could beat Sampson.
There you go.
I don't like being second.
All right.
I don't know.
All right.
It's tough on me.
Nobody is going to like all of you. You're not
tequila.
Oh, no, I'm
not. Trust me, I didn't come up here to be
You
liked.
are not tequila. You are up here doing a job, a hard job, that requires you to step out of your comfort zone, to step up for your citizens, to speak from your heart, from your passion. You're not going to please everybody. And I wish you wouldn't look at those names on there. I wish you would just look at the themes.
No, and I think the way where I was trying to get to it is to make sure that you maintain the credibility that you wanted out of this. And unfortunately, there are people that go out and look at the numbers. And when they look at the numbers, they determine the inaccuracies to the credibility of what's going on. And I think that's where I was kind of going with that. It's just if for the sake of the report and the credibility of the report is what I'm asking. Damn, I appreciate your passion on that one.
Boy, I would sure stand behind it. I would absolutely stand behind it.
Thank you.
Just a couple of quick follow-ups. Tara, I really appreciate your comments about needing a more friendly and informative website. I too have trouble finding things on our website. It's gotten better. 5 years ago, I had even more trouble, but we aren't there yet. And I think Shane and Sarah, I think what you were talking about in terms of texting and emailing and everything, what you're talking about is not violating the open meeting law, that more than 2 counselors don't confer on anything coming before council, whether it's in a meeting or before a meeting, is that you're asking that the public has the right to hear our discussion as we're hearing it for the first time with each other and to come to our decisions, having listened to each other and the public and our staff that's making presentation. I think that's what I'm summarizing what I think your goal was there. We asked you to determine, basically why why we have the issues of trust and how we could improve. And you've done that. You've done that amazingly well. I thank you for all the time and effort, and I imagine a certain amount of agony. I renew my request for a rule of 4 to pursue the suggestions that this committee, it would be a shame not to, a year's worth of people's work, meeting far more frequently than our regular boards and commissions that meet, digging in, and I'm sure a ton of time away from their meetings. I think we should pursue some of the, as a council, we can decide which ones we want to take action on and make part of our processes. So I will renew my request. Wow.
So let me clarify if I could, Madam Mayor. So if we don't do a rule of 4 on this, what happens to all of this work that's been done? Well, Councilor Fogle didn't have his mic on, but Councilor Fogle said we could use it any time that we want. So what do you mean by that, Councilor Fogle?
Yep. Well, I think
I'll go with my chair.
What were you asking, Councilor Sampson?
I think I would direct that question to the city manager.
Okay, yeah, that's a good idea. So city manager, if we don't implement a rule of 4 to have these items brought back for further review, for us to decide what we might like to do with them, since this is a no action item, then what happens with all of the information, all the recommendations?
So thank you for your question. I have already talked with our chief a little bit about this, but the ones that are pertaining to the Jensen Hughes report, we want to make sure that are addressed in our response to you on October 11th, which we'll be back for. So for follow-up, over 50% or 60% of these items are in the Jensen Hughes report that we've been looking at for the implementation plan. Appreciate the update that was given by Commissioner Black, because she spent a lot of time with our chief and has that information. So there is other things in there that the chief's been working on and received feedback from, not just the Trust Commission, but also PCAB as well, and ELT and myself. So that will be coming back to you on October 11th. So that will address a big number of these. The others are, fund this or look at funding. I mean, you'll be seeing that on next week on September 27th. Both police and fire are coming back to make some comments to you and updates. And you'll be able to see some information on how some of these recommendations from the Trust Commission have been addressed or are being addressed in the presentation that they'll be making to you on the budget update.
So they'd be piecemealed. We wouldn't look at this full list, and we certainly wouldn't be looking at any of the ethics recommendations or reviewing any of the survey things or anything like that we'd want to take action on based solely on this presentation. They would be piecemealed, interjected 50 to 60% throughout other things.
Yeah,
Other presentations.
Right now, there's only so much staff that we can't do all of this right now. It's going to take some time to get this worked in. The other part of these there is some questions I want to wait for a new police chief, quite frankly. Some of the policing models and some of the discussion that was brought up, there's a lot of good recommendations there, but we need to spend some time studying that. There's a staff study about number of people that are needed in the police department. We need to look at that. So some of these will get addressed, and I'm envisioning having those conversations with our new police chief about it. So I think some of these will hold till then.
Okay, but if we supported a rule of 4 on these items, then that would ensure that those items would come back and we would be included in that discussion.
I'm here now telling you that. So, I don't know what you need a rule of 4 for, but...
I think what's nice is the way that it's been compiled, and I think that's what I'd like for council to consider. And no, I'm not just letting this die, because we have a commission that has done a significant amount of work. We've put a significant amount of resources. The original rule of 4, the creator of the original request for this motion for this, I would expect would want to see this work move forward as well. And if our city manager wants to roll it into other things, that's understandable, and maybe that can be done. But I would like to ensure that we're addressing the things that these people have taken the time to compile for us. I think that making sure that we go through each item together and decide if it's something we want to look at is important. I wish that would have been tonight, personally. I wish this had been an action item, so we could have said, we like this, we don't like this, we want to talk about this. But we haven't had a chance to do that. I would really request that everyone reconsider not supporting a rule of 4. Obviously, we know some of these rules of 4 live for years before they're ever addressed. So it might be that we take pieces out. But I would really, really like to consider or ask for everyone to reconsider their lack of support of this.
I think I saw Councilor Olson next.
Yeah, thank you. My expectation, and correct me, City Manager, if I'm wrong, was that you've been involved, you and the City Attorney have been involved in the Trust Commission. You've attended their meetings. You've listened to their recommendations. My expectation is that you will take this information, go through it, and pull out the things that are in process and give us a status of those things and what things remain to be undone. Is that not what your intent was?
I thought I said that if I wasn't clear.
Well, just
on
I wanted
October 11th, those things that are.
That's what I thought, and that's what I heard, and so that to me is actions being taken. I don't see the necessity of a rule of 4 because he's doing what we want him to do, and that's take this information that's been brought to us, parse through it, give it to the departments, those things that need action that are within the bounds of their funding and authority and so forth, and then those things that are reasonable recommendations that council may have of interest is bring that back to us with a status report. So that's what I heard, and so that's why I don't see the need for a rule 4. I think that's not going in the trash can. It's going to be the action's going to be taken by the city manager.
Well, it was brought to us, not to the city manager. I think we should have direction over it.
Yeah, let me keep moving on because we're really late and we really do need to get on with our meeting. So briefly, Councilor McFall.
Just a quick question for the city manager. So let's say this did make it to a rule of 4, and then the aspect of what you're doing right now is brought to us. I mean, my problem with rule of 4s is that, in my mind, just to be very honest with you, for the most part, everybody thinks they just go there and they die.
Anyone that I have submitted has not come back
Mayor,
to council.
I was not going personal on this one at all. I just want you to know that. But I mean, that really is. I mean, that's my I get it. I know we've had some things that have come back. We've got things that are sitting out there since 2017 that are still a part of the rule of 4 itself.
Okay.
I don't have an issue reconsidering the aspect of a rule of 4, but if the city manager comes back with this and says, hey, I've got this, and this, and this done, or we're working on this, I'd like to just see it just be kicked out done. I mean, that's the part I look at with it. I mean, that to me is what I think the rule of 4 should be to begin with. But if it's just going to go into a bucket and sit there, what's the sense of doing a rule of 4? That's what I'm saying.
Waste of time.
All right, Councilor Fogle, and we are trying to be brief, people.
I might have reconsidered a rule of 4 up until the stunts I just saw a few minutes ago. Now I would not. I might have considered a rule of 4 up until what I just saw a few seconds ago. I would not now. Thank you.
All right, Councilor Foley, briefly, please.
Thank you, briefly. I see this final report as a good roadmap. It's already out there. The city manager already has some good things that has already been completed on that. Number 2, there's nothing preventing him. A lot of these recommendations, sure, there's a few policy pieces that would bring it in front of us, but a lot of the other pieces of it is direction of operational concern. And that's the city manager's responsibility. And I would seriously hope that this would be disseminated automatically, and the things that make sense, he's going to go ahead and implement that. So I agree with Councilor McFall. Rule of 4s in this city are a death trap. That's like sending it to some subcommittee down at the state to die. Okay, we gotta we got to clean that up. To me, putting this in a rule of 4 would be an extreme disservice to the Trust Commission and all of what they've done when it's right there for everybody to read and we can see. We talked about surveys, and I said surveys are a snapshot in time. Surveys could be used to see where we're at. We could ask for, at a later point, can you give us an update on what has been done? That's a whole lot easier for the city. We talk about wanting to have things fast. That's the quickest way to get some resolve on what we've got here. So I'm not for a rule of 4.
All right, Councilor. Councilor.
I'm sorry, I'm not a politician. I'm a public citizen who took a year of my life away from my kids to do what you guys asked us to do. And the disservice to the Community Trust Commission was what you guys are doing right now. I cannot tell you how hard those people worked for you. And you want trust? You will never have trust when you treat people like this. It is gross. It's gross, you guys. We did this with our hearts. We want to trust you guys, but you make it impossible for us. Aaron and the interim chief of police spent hours going over that and going over that and going over that. And this is so disrespectful to his time, his commitment to this community. And what I hate is that his reputation is going to be tied into this reputation, because he is not like that. He treated us with a lot of respect. He took our ideas, and when he didn't agree, he told us he didn't agree. But I didn't feel like it was thrown back in our face, which is exactly how I feel right now. And I know that's how they feel. And I'm not a politician. Shane has been telling me not to talk, but I never imagined that this is how you guys would react to that. We had all sorts of ideas of how you'd react. Never once did I think that you would just like throw it to the side. You guys asked us to do this. We didn't come up with this plan on our own. It was your guys' plan. And I think it's incredibly disrespectful what you just did to people. And I will also say that Ray Mendoza, that you guys didn't want to participate in because you didn't want to give a brown guy an award, that news went national. And there were people who were like, wow, that would never happen in our community. Wow, this is the first time there's accountability for bad cops. Not the good cops, the bad cops. And that should be something that this community should be so proud of. But you guys won't even talk about it because he was brown. Like, I don't know what to tell you guys. If you cannot get what these people have done for a year and at least just thank them like several of you did, but then you wouldn't vote to accept it and discuss it. You broke all of our trust. Last night we were celebrating. We were like, wow, we actually grew trust. And tonight I feel like that's all that work, all that hope for trust for our community is gone. And you know what? When the Garner family, I forget her last name, and I hate that I just forgot her last name. When she stood up here, what is shocking is the lieutenant that she listed with that blue team report, Schaefer, is the exact same officer who I complained about to Tyser. And I never used his name because I wanted to be respectful. And Tyser promoted him after I complained about the exact same behavior that was shown in the video. You guys, I have no idea how you think you're going to gain trust with this community, but the way you're doing it is not going to be the way you're going to accomplish trust.
Thank you,
And
Tara. Thank you, Tara. Counts.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilor Overcash?
Just as a reminder, we formed the Trust Commission with an end date stated, did the interviews of ending September, end of September, unless we decided otherwise. So the expectations were it was an ad hoc commission for 1 year to help supplement all the other work that was being done on that issue. But I think there's a word of thanks and appreciation that we often forget to do as a council, and that's to our city attorney, Moses Garcia, our city manager, Mr. Adams, Steve Adams, and also to our former police chief, Bob Tyser, as well as the interim police chief and other officers who went to a lot of meetings with the Trust Commission. They went to a lot of meetings and put a lot of time in it. And it wasn't easy. When I heard about some of those meetings, when I viewed some of those meetings and got feedback from some of those meetings and saw the number of people who were also leaving the commission, I don't know if I could have put up with what you put up with on a professional basis. Your service was admirable to that, and you should be commended for that. So I'd rather emphasize the qualities that you brought to it. You were patient, you were forbearing, you did the work, you did above and beyond the work on top of your regular duties as city employees. So I think all of us on council owe you both and the other individuals I mentioned a word of thanks for that. So thank you.
All right. Councilor Mallow?
Thank you, Mayor Marsh. Let me frame the debate that I thought we were in, which is Rule of 4. No one's recommending that we throw anything in the trash can. I think we're debating whether or not a Rule of 4 or directing the city manager is the right way to go. Now, Councilor Sampson's exactly right. We're supposed to direct things. No one's asking me to analyze anything, I hope. That's what city staff should be doing, and Steve acknowledged twice, I believe, that that's his role, to take all three of these surveys, all this stuff, and sort through it. And yeah, it's going to take some time, some staff time, but it's important enough that we need to spend that. Now, I don't support Rule of 4. I haven't had too much luck with that either, Mayor Marsh. I think it'll be quicker and more effective if we just direct the city manager to come back to us with results, not only of Jensen Hughes, which has already taken place, but the community survey and the Trust Commission. All that needs to be folded through. There's a lot of reputations. Some you can just combine and move on, and I'm not even going to tell you when to report back, because that didn't work for me either when I tried to do that. So again, if we upset some people, I understand. It's very, very touchy. But right now, we're not discussing about throwing anything in the waste can. It's just the best way to handle this, and a Rule of 4 is not the way to do that. So I will not be supporting a Rule of 4 for the reasons I just pointed out.
All right, Councilor Fogle.
Shane, thank you for hanging in. And, I want to thank you for taking time away from EMS and from Thompson Valley to be on the commission. And I want to thank you for our discussion, because I thought it was pretty good. So we both had an opinion. Didn't happen to be the same opinion, but we did get to basically the same place. So I wish that is how the rest of this discussion had gone, and that these last few minutes hadn't occurred the way they did. I think the other councilors have told you why the Rule of 4 is, the problem that we're trying to figure out how to do, and you didn't get to see our budget meetings, we're trying to figure out how to kill Rule of 4s. The problem we have is no good Rule of 4 ever dies. We have one from 2017 that's never been acted on yet. So putting you in that stack would have been quite the disservice. And I think every one of us has heard it, and we're going to rely on our city manager and our city management and our interim police chief and the successor to that position to implement the things that you've suggested. And I really commend a couple of your members for following. One lady said that she's got the list and she's going to follow it. I hope she does. And I hope anytime we stray from the path, she emails us and raises Cain about it. That would be a service to the city. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And hi, Catherine. I don't know if you're going to talk or not.
City Manager, I have a request that you run a new Rule of 4 request going back to 2017, and that you break it down by counselor who made the Rule of 4 request. And when it comes to inclusionary housing, please mark that I got a white paper and not a discussion by council. All right.
Can I just briefly speak to the
okay.
Rule of 4 thing? So listen, Shane, and Catherine and members who are still present for Trust Commission, my fellow council members are not wrong. A Rule of 4 is sort of a little bit like sending something to a graveyard. But
that's not true.
We do actually get Rules of 4 done also.
If the city manager
Yes.
runs the reports by councilors, you'll see there are councilors who have gotten 9 out of 10
that is true.
of their Rules of 4.
But it was not a
before.
counselor who made it tonight. But what I will say is, and that's not even really what my whole point was. My point is that I felt compelled, Mayor Marsh felt compelled that some action should be taken in acknowledgement and recognition and appreciation for the work that you have done. And a Rule of 4 is, not ideal. But also it's not ideal that this was a non-action item, and we technically cannot make a motion, which is what I would have done, or Mayor Marsh would have done, or perhaps even another council member would have done. So what I would like to relay is that for me, this item is not dead just because it doesn't have a Rule of 4. And I would ask that if you have opportunity to convey this to your other commissioners, let them know as well. I certainly am not going to forget the work that you've done. I imagine there's other council members up here who are going to mull this over. Yes, we're assuming that our city manager, who does awesome work, I'm not saying anything negative about our city manager, but what I am saying is that our role is to provide direction to our city manager, and I believe it needs to formally be done. So this is not the last you will hear, and please don't be discouraged because the Rule of 4 didn't happen tonight, although I did support it, and I think it was good for what we had.
So we're 3.5 hours without a break.
I will be really brief.
What you
I
have
just
to say
want
is so important that you're going to extend.
I don't want the city manager to think he's being beat up because of this long Rule of 4. We're responsible for that, not him. Now, he has to make the decision on where he's going to place the assets. So I don't want him to take some heat unjustly. We have a lot of Rules of 4, and we've put that burden on him. And so juggling those Rules of 4 is
fine.
So anyway,
Madam Mayor, just to mind you real quick, I think Councilman Mallow brought up a really good point, and all I'm asking is this. Is there a way, because it's a non-action item, this is my naivety for being new here, but is there a way of directing the city manager to roll this up into his reports back to us on the Jensen Hughes report, so we're getting an update on both of them, so that we can hopefully get the trust of the Trust Commission back again and those that walked out of here, and also still be able to get that update here in front of everybody so that it can be out there and everybody can understand what's going on.
It goes way beyond Jensen Hughes. There
Yes,
were
ma'am.
many other recommendations
Right.
besides Jensen Hughes. They tried to point out the ones that they feel are imperative that we make sure get done.
But can we, that's what I'm asking, can we do that type of, I don't know. I'm asking Mayor, I need guidance.
Yeah.
The only thing we can do right now. The only thing we can do right now is a Rule of 4. Is that correct, City Attorney? The only action that we can take during a non-action item is request a Rule of 4.
Councilmember Sampson, a Rule of 4 is appropriate during this no action item. You can certainly generally give direction, that requires, obviously a large number of you to do so, because if there's inconsistent nods, then the city manager is not in a position to take action.
Okay.
30 seconds, Kathy, and then we got to get.
Well, wait. Can I really quickly? I would just ask that. I would just ask that if there is enough support to direct staff, or ask city manager to direct staff to come back at the next regular meeting with a proposed motion that would address the concerns of bringing this back forward, back in front of council.
Go on for that.
You would do that. You would support direction that they would bring a motion at the next meeting.
Yeah.
The next regular meeting or special meeting.
Councilmember Sampson.
We can't take a vote on that.
That's a motion.
We can't take a vote.
That's a motion?
Yeah,
I didn't say motion.
Vote on that.
Okay, never mind.
30 seconds, Kathy.
Absolutely. I simply want to say you have some very passionate people who care. You also have people out here who have been sitting silent and witnessing this, and I think we all need some recognition from you all. Stand.
Well, then, you know.
Lori, no, commissioners. Lori.
All right. All right. Thank you, Trust Commission. Thank you for your year of work. Thank you for coming before us several times and for your recommendations tonight. You did yourselves proud, and I am proud of you.